It was a player named Arthur. He was known throughout the gaming world as being the most fearless and high level of them all. There were no invincible monsters for him. He always found a way to overcome any opponent without ever taking damage for himself, thanks to his very best items that he carried on himself. For example, his golden armor cost 100 million hollows, and his sword was the only and unique in the entire game. It could increase several times in size without becoming heavier, which made it even easier to kill monsters. He was known to be the most haughty and overconfident player in the entire game. Arthur had great wealth, which he used to buy better things and upgrade his armor. But his arrogance and importunity led many players to want to finish him off. However, no one could defeat him thanks to his upgraded armor and magical abilities. But few people knew that in order to achieve this level of skill, Arthur borrowed money from the pawnbroker Harthider. He borrowed money to buy new equipment or simply to pay for the initial leveling of his character. And to pay off his debts, he went on new quests and killed monsters. But one day he was given a quest, which turned out to be so difficult that even he could not cope with the main boss. The monster was too powerful and Arthur lacked the experience and skills to defeat it. The only thing he managed to do was kill half of his health. Eventually the dragon removed all of his armor and killed him, which forced him to reset his leveling and start all over again to achieve the same success. After this tragedy, Arthur realized that he could no longer be the best. He had to start over, pump his character from the very beginning levels. After the restart, he again ended up in the main lobby where he wanted to get a little food, so he chased the rabbit and started to fight with him. But without hitting him once, the rabbit pushed him with his hind legs, because of which our main character lost half of his health flying far into the bushes. A healer ran up to him, who wanted to help him, but Arthur drove him away, saying that he could handle it without his help. Then the healer noticed that his voice was very similar to the voice of one player, examined him, and was delighted that the highest level player was lying in front of him, but already without armor, sword, and other paraphernalia. Healer picked him up and ran with him to the main lobby, where there were always many other players. As soon as the players realized that in front of them was the same arrogant player, but without armor and without abilities, they immediately decided to take revenge on him. They tied him to a pole and asked the healer to restore Arthur's health after each blow, after which they began to beat the crowd, and the healer at that time only prolonged the beating of Arthur by the crowd. Harthider appeared, who learned about the defeat that had happened from a high-level player. By the way, Arthur at that time still had a huge amount of debts that he had to close while completing the last quest. But due to the fact that he lost all his abilities, armor and sword, there was nothing more to pay, and to pass high-paying quests were unrealistic. The moneylender offered Arthur the next option, where he could forget about all his debts if he fulfilled one of his requests. Arthur had no choice but to agree and follow the conditions set. Then another character appears in the main lobby, a girl whose name has not yet been revealed, and she stands up for Arthur, calling him an incredibly dear person for her. Arthur himself does not understand who this girl is and why she stands up for him, blocking the way for the usurer. Then the girl told us why Arthur is a true friend. A year ago, when there was a huge PvP battle on the server, a huge number of players killed each other, taking someone else's inventory. But Arthur, when he could finish her off, stopped and only asked her to become stronger so that she would not get into such situations again. At this moment, Emperor Henshu appears in the main lobby, another rather skillful player, and sees a high-level player without armor, weapons, and abilities, so he decides to take revenge on him for all the insults. The girl, standing not far from Arthur, without thinking for a second, immediately enters into battle with the Emperor, diverting all attention to herself. After the Emperor inflicts several blows, the usurer bursts into battle because he understands the value of Arthur as a player who scored the highest level. He pulls Arthur and the girl away, and a dragon emerges from the ground, which takes 3 players and instantly flies up, leaving the Emperor in the main lobby. As soon as the dragon reaches the Dragon Mountain location, he drops all the heroes near the house, and the usurer Arthur says to follow him, because now there will be exactly the offer that Arthur cannot refuse. In the house they are met by a huge number of small dragons that look like dogs. Arthur greets someone calling him boss, and then a small player of a young age appears before the eyes of Arthur and the girl. The service that Harkitter asked for in exchange for the forgiveness of all debts is to upgrade his boss to the maximum level in this game, as the boss himself tells us. Arthur asks him what will happen to him in return, to which the boss replies that he will give him 1,000,000,000 duples. Arthur involuntarily agrees to this, because our player has no other option at all. At this point, he says that he needs to switch off and disappears from the scene in the game. Then we are transported to the real world, where the guy is pulled out from behind the computer by 3 men and thrown into a room where there's only a toilet and a computer desk on which the computer stands. These men are the guys of Chairman Kim, who pays for everything that our main character spends money on in real life. The men threw him into the room and locked him up because Chairman Kim had bet huge money on our hero in the upcoming competition, as until recently he was the top player with the highest level. And now they set a goal for him to return his level in the game, and until he does this, he will not see an exit from this room. You are probably wondering why he lives on the money Chairman Kim, but everything is very simple. 3 years ago, he owed him a huge amount of money, which he was no longer able to repay. But then the chairman made concessions, and invited him to play a new game where virtual currency can be exchanged for real, thanks to the in-game trading platform. Since our main character was incredibly fond of playing games, he went for it in order to repay the debt and work for Chairman Kim, for which the latter provided him with all his accommodation, cars, travel, and so on. At the moment when our protagonist lost all his achievements, armor, swords, and abilities in the game, he jeopardized Chairman Kim's money, which was already invested in the bookmaker for this game competition, so these 3 guys threw him into a separate room, forcing him to return everything lost in the time left before the competition. Our main character understands that his life is in danger, so he immediately sits down at the computer desk and enters the game again. He finds himself on the same stage in the boss's house, where he offers him not 1,000,000,000 duples for the pumping service, but 3,000,000,000. This boss is an incredibly rich character in this game, so he agrees to Arthur's terms. Then all 3, the girl, Arthur, and the boss, go to the training lands in the Yopi lands. The boss has heard about the player Arthur, but he still doubts his abilities, so as soon as they appear in the lands of Yopi, the boss forces Arthur to fight a random player in this location. The choice falls on the green-headed guy. He attacks him from behind and hits him once, but the green-headed guy is level 30 in this game, and easily recovers from being hit by our former high-level level 1 player. He pins Arthur against the wall and offers him an official duel where he can easily kill him. Before each duel, viewers can bet gold on any of the players in order to increase or lose their capital. This time a huge crowd gathers for the duel and they all bet on the green-headed guy because no one believes in the power of the noob Arthur, although he used to was the best of all. The duelists also set their own conditions that will be fulfilled by the loser, so the green-headed guy says that the main condition for the player Arthur is to delete the game and the character so that he can never recover. And Arthur asks in return for all his abilities and strength that the green-headed guy has. Boy. The judge agrees to the terms of the duel and the duel begins. The green-headed guy remembers all the insults that Arthur caused him, so he wants to kill him painfully and for a long time during the duel. Arthur is trying to fight back and he has the last 3 health points left, while the green-headed guy has all the health is normal. But no one took into account that Arthur had a tiny sword that allowed every 100th hit to inflict critical damage in the form of paralysis, which forced the enemy to stop for 20 seconds and did not allow him to use any abilities, movements, and strikes in the game. The green-headed guy approaches Arthur to finish him off, but Arthur strikes his opponent with his sword and causes him to become paralyzed, after which he quickly finishes him off with his sword and wins this fight. Arthur becomes the winner of the duel. A judge appears on the field, offering Arthur to choose only one of the chests with the abilities of the green-headed guy because his low level does not allow him to take all three. Arthur understands that he needs to upgrade his luck skill so that in any case something good and useful falls out of the chests, but now he does not have such a skill, so he will have to choose completely on his own. Then he chooses the cheapest-looking chest, where he drops an incredible item that allows him to heal himself when he does not take damage for seconds. At this point, our story is transferred to the main square of the Yopi land, where the Imperial Castle is located. Head General Tak and his assistant Lime appear before us, where they continue to train against creeps, improving their ground and air combat skills. They were joined by the king of the land Yopi, who reported that he had seen an incredibly interesting fight between two players, one of whom was a former high-level player who won this duel. Chief General Tech thinks for what purpose a high-level player could move exactly to the lands of Yopi, but did not find an answer in his head, therefore he suggests putting surveillance on these characters exploring their lands. At this time, the story is transferred to our three guys Arthur, the boss and the girl, where we learn that the name of the boss is Dark. They walk along a path somewhere in the middle of the forest, and Dark asks Arthur how exactly he defeated such a player. Arthur replies that it is necessary to know the power of all objects in order not to make such mistakes as this green-headed guy made. His initial sword deals every hit using paralysis, which is why he was able to win. The girl asks Dark how he got so much money, since he was able to offer Arthur billion duppels in order for him to upgrade him. To which he replies that his grandfather is the chairman of the company that created this game, which is why he has so much money. On that day, grandfather was supposed to write his will in this game called Adventure in the Mind. But the situation with grandfather is so bad that after he declared this, he no longer regained consciousness, although his status reflects like in the game. At this point, their conversation was interrupted and the first quest appeared. To be continued.